Okay, hello everybody. Thanks for sticking it out. I think I see about 10 of you, 15 of you out there. A little bit of a change. We lost our moderator to the effects of alcohol, I guess. I'm Mike from Socialspiel Entertainment. We're a Vienna-based mobile games development studio working on a game named Legacy Quest for Nexon, one of the large Korean games publishers. I'm sitting today with three of some of the greatest mobile games publishers in the world today to talk a little bit about funding options for indie game development studios who are looking to bring their concepts and bring their ideas out to the international market, reach potentially the Asian markets as well, but work on global mobile development, global mobile publishing. I'll go ahead and have you guys just do quick introductions of yourselves. We're going to do a really free-form conversation today since I'm not a professional moderator and I've never moderated a panel before. But it's not going to be developers versus publishers, but we'll just chat a little bit today. So Jaime, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hello? Hello, okay. I'm Jaime Ocampo. I run business development for DeNA. I don't know how many of you actually know who DeNA is. We're a mobile gaming company headquartered out of Japan. We publish games for smartphone, both on iOS and on Android. We've got 15 offices worldwide. Most of our games are actually seen in the Japanese market, but we've also started about 3 years ago publishing games in the West through our San Francisco office. So some of our more popular titles over the last 3 years are titles called Rage of Bahamut, Blood Brothers, Marvel War of Heroes, and recently we've just released a game called Final Fantasy Record Keeper, which is actually doing pretty well right now. We've got a lot of, which I think we'll talk about today, publishing opportunities for developers like yourself. But maybe before we get to that, let's just find out who the rest of the panel is.
Yeah, John?
Thanks. John Robinson from Nexon M. We are the Western publishing group for Nexon, which is one of the largest Korean game companies. We work with about 10 different mobile game companies around the world. We've already launched 4 games, and we've got another half dozen or so coming out later this year, including Dominations, if any of you have played that. Regarding my personal background, before I worked at Nexon, I actually was an indie game developer myself, self-funded the company, and then raised an angel round. So for those thinking about their investment options, happy to talk about publishing versus self-funding versus an institutional round.
Hi. My name's Q Lee. I'm the president of GAMEVIL USA. We're a mobile game publisher that's been around since 2000, so we have a long history in the feature phone era. And then I think we successfully transitioned into the smartphone era. We started out doing work for hire as a developer with publishers in the beginning, and since 3-4 years ago, we started doing publishing ourselves. And now the majority of our business is all third party. And we work with around 50 different developers around the world. And we have offices in 12 different locations, including Berlin. So, yeah.
Are you hiring in Berlin? Is that what you're...
Yeah, we have been. So we opened our office last year, and now we have around 16 people, mainly around localization and live operations.
Cool, thanks. I think some interesting points from my side. I'm coming from the development side. My background's from Rockstar Games, originally from the U.S., Los Angeles. Thanks. What I've noticed is that I can see some of the differences between the U.S. Or North American game development communities, as well as being in Vienna for 12 years now in game development. I see a lot of the differences that even you find on regional levels, like the DACH region development communities are quite different than, say, the Nordics, what you're seeing in Finland, Sweden, those countries there, and entirely different than what you see, for example, in Spain and different communities that you see in the UK as well. So what I've noticed is there's a tremendous amount of talent in Europe. Many developers are working on some exciting creative IP. Funding opportunities aren't necessarily that widespread, especially throughout, I guess, pan-Europe, if you will. UK used to be quite a good games industry to be a part of when you were working on PC console games. Not so much today on the mobile side of things. Naturally, self-publishing is one of the preferred routes for game developers these days in much of Europe. But I think what you're starting to see these days, especially something that we're seeing as well, is that it's getting more and more difficult to gain that distribution and gain the exposure in the different app stores. And so, you know, I'm seeing the need now to, or it makes sense to have a good relationship together with some tremendous publishers who can help you gain that sort of exposure. On the topic of Europe, are you guys active in Europe? I know, John, you guys are working with Envision. You've worked with us. How's that looking for you guys with Nexon?
For Nexon, Europe's always been a big focus for us. It will continue to be a big focus. We're just looking to work with the best developers in the world, wherever those may be. If anything, we've kind of eschewed working or just going after kind of like the big hubs. It's not just San Francisco and Finland, but rather I think we like looking for people who have a very independent vision and are kind of doing their own thing and are charting their own course. So it seems like that's certainly the case here with the local development scene as well as kind of across mainland Europe. So we've always been interested, and I think we'll continue to be out here quite a bit.
Great. It's good to hear. Q, you already mentioned you opened your Berlin office.
Yeah. So we've been working with quite a couple of European developers. I think the European development community has great original designs, which we're always looking for, and also the background of like web gaming, and which brings a lot of free-to-play knowledge, which we're pretty much 100% focusing on. So it's been an easy choice for us to work with European developers, besides the time zone issues. But yeah, so that's. Yeah, it's been a great experience, and we're continuing to looking for more developers out here.
Great, Jaime, DeNA.
Yeah,
Europe.
well, yeah, we have 5 partnerships in Europe, all with different sort of partnership models, but we're all sort of creating games with these studios around Europe, spanning both, you know, all the way from Western Europe to Eastern Europe. Actually, we also have a couple of partners in that area, and I mean, we do really see, you know, some good talent. I mean, I think the most distinguishable skill set we see in Europe really is in the creative design and in the artwork, which I think for us somehow transcends also, you know, it's artwork that somehow also appeals even to, let's say, an Asian audience, more than, for example, what we see from, like, say, an American studio type of artwork, which is really specifically just appeals for the Western market. Creative game design and a good sort of knowledge transfer between know-how and how to do things here in the West, because we're basically from Asia, and most of the stuff we do is just in Asia. So that information exchange every time we partner up with the studios here in Europe has been very healthy for us too. So it's like a two-way learning process, and that's been great.
Good, great. I'll shoot a question back over to you, Q. You've been talking about how you recently opened your office. You're looking to work together with more studios in Europe. I know you've done some investments. You're also doing some publishing deals. But you directly with GAMEVIL, what's an interesting studio for you guys to work with? What do you look for in terms of organization, creative, game design, monetization design? I think everyone up here is primarily working on free-to-play games, mobile PC as well, probably more on the mobile side. I would go ahead and say. So what is it that GAMEVIL is looking for in a studio?
Well, we do have a lot of developers based in Korea that we work with, and so if it's something that could be built in Korea, I think we'd probably prefer it to be built in Korea. So I'm always looking for something different, very original, and with more Western graphics. And there are like certain categories that you can find well in Asia, but there are certain categories that you can't find at all in Asia, but it's a huge market in the Western territories. So we want a partner that can broaden our audience base. That's one of the things that we're looking for. We're looking for something original. I think there's a lot of there's plenty of good games out on the App Store already, and I think if you're trying to build the same thing, I don't think we've tried it ourselves. We tried to build same things, but it always failed, you know, because there's a better good product out there that users would choose over, and they already spent a decent amount of time on those games. So I've been trying to find games that haven't been done, and I've been trying to find games that's a better mesh between the West and the East. I think it's very important to target the whole world, and Asia's been growing at a really fast pace too. So I've been trying to find games that could work in the West and the East, and as a publisher, we want to add value to that. So it's not only on the financial side or on the distribution side. We want to help make that game together so that it can work everywhere.
John, you had mentioned Nexon M is the Western development group, or excuse me, publishing group for mobile from the Nexon side. What is it that you guys look for in a game? I mean, Q was just mentioning that kind of he's not looking for games that have been done in the East, but more either Western style or global style. Is that kind of the same purview you guys have, or are you also?
So I'd actually say before we even like think about the game or genre or category, we're very much like team focused. So what we're looking for is strong creative directors, strong designers, strong art directors, strong CTO. If a team has that kind of core group, we've got a lot of faith if they've got experience there, previous success there, regardless of what their next project is, regardless of how ambitious that is. That's kind of like the foundation we think for success. So the first thing we look for is really strong leaders there on the team side, and then after that we're very much, I would say, genre and like geographically agnostic.
Do you normally look for just a disclaimer? Nexon is an investor in my company, so John and I have spent a lot of time together.
Happily so. Happily
so. I mean, from that side, you know, naturally focusing on kind of free-to-play mobile titles. One of the lessons that we learned rather quickly. Socialspiel is 5 years old now. We're on our 4th free-to-play game now. One of the things I've heard quite a bit from a lot of people is that for a free-to-play game developer, it's usually around your 3rd game that you kind of crack the nut of getting the retention, getting monetization design right. Do you look for that as well, or are you? And naturally, I know Nexon creates kind of long-term relationships, as does GAMEVIL and as does DeNA as well. So I mean, are you looking for kind of interesting concepts, interesting teams that show promise, or you want to make contact with them early, or are you kind of looking for what they can become or what they are currently?
I'd say probably both. There are a lot of first-time game developers where we see great concepts and great potential for the future. And even if maybe the first game isn't going to be that huge hit that we're hoping for, we definitely want to help them as much as we can and see if there might be something for the future. But yeah, typically the teams that we work with, even when it's brand new companies, they've worked together in previous iterations before, or have worked together as development teams.
Okay. Jaime, DeNA. I know DeNA is quite active on the publishing side of things. I think you're doing a lot of third-party publishing and also you've been looking for developers to work with on DeNA
Right.
properties and IP. What are you looking for in game development studios these
Well,
days?
like I said earlier, the best experience we've had so far when we partner with developers is really the information exchange and the two-way learning process. So what we offer as DeNA, so most of the deals that we do is we turn it some sort of like a co-development deal where both parties actually contribute to building a game together. And we, unfortunately, not all games sort of work in the style that we know how to sort of create games. And since we've always been a free-to-play company, we've actually sort of grew certain principles that we can't really veer away from. We can call it sort of like the expertise or the secret sauce of DeNA, which is how to run a free-to-play game, which consists of a lot of activities around live ops and event-driven games. So when we look at games with developers, we usually see if there's like the design matches what we know of how to run events and how to run live game operations for free-to-play monetization. And we're pretty really upfront, you know. For example, a Candy Crush or a Match 3 type of game wouldn't really fit well in the way how we learn, how we know how to create a successfully monetizing game. So it's that sort of know-how that we offer because the Japanese have a really different way of doing things compared to how Western developers know what live ops means. So that's what we put on the table. And the Western developer or the European developer brings in sort of like the know-how of like what works in terms of art style and mechanics here in the Western markets. So yeah, and we have a lot of we have a lot like different types of collaborations, different levels, where it could be from just pure publishing, where we come in at a period, let's say maybe early alpha. We step in to the game, and that's the time where we sort of input our knowledge and be part of the development process of the game. We publish the game when it comes out as a third-party publisher. So that means, the IP of the game still completely belongs to the developer, and we're just sort of like the publisher. We have zero investment in the development of the game. Whereas there's another one where it's a notch higher, where we come at a very early stage. We can even do as early as concept stage, where we both work on a concept together. And if we can formulate an idea, then it's a co-development partnership where we actually fund the whole development of the game. But when it comes in this mode, basically it's going to be a DeNA game, and the IP at the end of the day will belong to DeNA.
Okay, I mean, it's good that you brought that up, especially topics like live operations, especially beginning early in the concept phase. And Q, you were mentioning that GAMEVIL, you're looking for titles that haven't been done in the East, global titles. But what are some of what's some of your experience actually with launching mobile titles globally? One of the lessons we've also learned with working with Nexon, there's a big difference in, you can't just say Asia and it actually mean one thing. Japanese market's extremely different to the Korean market, which is extremely different to the Taiwanese market, which is extremely different to the Chinese market. GAMEVIL, from a publisher perspective, I'm assuming offers a developer the opportunity or the freedom and the opportunity and the knowledge to make their game, and then you guys help with marketing, distribution, live operations, localization. That's an important topic, I guess.
Yeah.
So what do you offer us developers? That's what I'd like to know.
We try to make the developer's life simple, so we try to take care of everything else. and have the developers only focus on the game itself. So, and global live operation is extremely expensive. If you look at our margins are very thin.
I think that's one thing that developers, I know I'm guilty of underestimating the size and scale of live operations.
Yeah, so yeah, we have, so if you look at our total live operation, we're about 500 people, but live operation is almost half of the company. So, and we're supporting 14 different languages around the world. And so you have to do localization for all of the game, customer support, community management for all the countries. And so, and now that the games are very event-driven, you have to localize all the events into 14 different languages, and turning that quick enough so that it doesn't bother the developer is really challenging. So our team's like pretty much up 24/7, and so we have like internal like messenger systems that blings all the time, because even when I'm sleeping, so I have a list of things to do in the morning once I get up. So it requires a lot of energy on the publisher side, and I think that's the value that we try to provide. And for that reason, we're very demanding to the developers too, because doing live operations from the developer side is also a lot of work, because you have to run the events, and then you also have to prepare updates for the games to make it interesting enough. And so for that reason, it's been really hard to work with very small teams. So I would say minimum team size should be at least 10 people on the developer side, so that they could actively support the live operations. But even on our side, I think on average, we have at least 10 to 20 people on a game if you collect all the resources around the world. So I think that's one of the values that we provide. The next value that we provide is pre-launch. We try to help with the monetization. So yeah, as Jaime mentioned, there are certain secret sauces, and so for an independent developer, you mentioned you have to do 3 iterations, but for an independent developer to learn all of that, you have to have a lot of experience launching those type of games. So we at least launch 20 games a year, maybe, and so we have a database of all the mistakes that developers make all the time, and so if we just go through that whole checklist, at least the bets become safer for the developers too. And on top of that, I think the third thing is the traffic that we already have. There's a very high concentration to the revenues and the amount of traffic to the top of the App Store. And so unless you have a decent traffic source from the beginning, it's really hard to even get your game noticed. I know good games will still get noticed, but now it's not only important to get it noticed, but it's also important to maintain getting noticed. So yeah, that's something. Those are the things that we try to help with the developers, and I think the experience that we had with the developers that we worked with makes us better every time. So we're still learning. Yeah.
And John, with Nexon, there's quite some history there with how many games you guys do. I'm sure you have that database as well.
We do, but actually I think the number of games we're doing is a whole lot smaller, in that we have our team of about 60 people now, but we're looking at only launching maybe 4 games a year, and we want to make sure that we have a substantial team to support each of those developers, in that we're shooting for top 25 grossing games, and for us to make that happen, we're probably making fewer bets but bigger bets at this point.
Okay, and by support, you're talking live ops, localization?
Across the board, so producers, product managers, QA, localization, community, product marketing, platform marketing. Yep.
Okay, so basically, I mean, as a developer, another hard lesson I've learned is that you also, it's an entire package that you kind of have to be prepared. I hate saying this as, as a developer. It's not just making a great game anymore. If you want to be at least somewhat successful, and if you're talking free-to-play mobile games, you're talking top grossing charts. So being able to engage your players, maintain that relationship with the players, bringing them back, sort of retention, that involves a lot, kind of community management, it involves marketing, it involves Twitter, it involves now video content via YouTube, it involves being active on Twitch. That's all a big part of what you're all doing for us, the developers. Jaime, how do you guys, in terms of offering marketing support, community support, live operations support, is DeNA pretty much in the same boat?
Yeah, you could say that we're in the same boat. I mean, we'd love to see a developer that already knew how to do the live ops, right? But you know, like I said, Japan has just been doing this a certain format of live ops for the longest time, isolated in itself. So for us to find someone that knows sort of like the Japanese style of live ops is really difficult. So basically, we always assume the live operations. But with, you know, we have actually now some ongoing projects where we're training developers how to do the live ops, sort of like, because it's like you know, these gentlemen just said, it's really resource intensive, and we also as DeNA have limited resources. As far as the marketing is concerned, well, it's all about really, you know, the initial performance of the game, right? We can't market all the games that come through us. I mean, I once spoke to a developer, right? He had a pretty awesome game, and I said, okay, so what do you want from us as a publisher? And he said, oh, I want you to give us $5 million of marketing budget. And I said, whoa. I just, you know, that's just, you know, okay.
Monthly, right? Monthly
Yeah.
marketing.
Okay, then I want your game to make $10 million, right? So it always has to, I mean, you always have to fall around that, right? So, okay. So I think you can easily do the math. Everyone can do the math, and everyone knows the basic assumption that in the whole ecosystem, publisher and developer have to be profitable. No one is going to be, you know, no one at any point is going to assume a loss, right? So if we were to pump in marketing money for your game, then, you know, we would expect developer to have done sort of maybe the soft launch, the test launch of the market to show us, you know, KPIs. That, you know, the game is actually worth, you know, the amount of dollars worth marketing, so that at the end of the day, you know, it's not a negative sense that appears in the balance sheet, right? And that math is pretty easy to do. I won't talk about it now, but if you want to learn the math, approach me later. Yeah.
You briefly spoke. Oh, sorry, John.
Yeah, can I just jump in and say one thing? Like, we've been talking a whole lot about all the benefits of publishers and making it sound like publishing is the only option, and I would say that's definitely not the case today, and that I think what's most important for developers to be successful is to match their resources and their ambition with what they ultimately want to do. And it's very easy for sub 10-person developers to make great games and be profitable and grow that studio and make multiple games over time without working with publishers. It's certainly a risk, and working with a publisher can help, you know, pour gas on that fire if the game is a hit, but it's certainly not a requirement to be successful. And really depends on, again, the size and the ambition of every developer.
And you come actually previously to I believe Nexon. You were at EA, or you had an angel funded your own game startup, yep. And you also had experience there at EA. In bringing that topic, I mean, we'll shift a little bit away from actually the publisher. It's a little bit, since there's so many publishers on stage, we kind of got stuck at that. But in talking about, John, as you were just mentioning, that, you know, maybe publishing isn't the right route to take. Angel funding, I think angel fund traditional internet industry, angel funding is everywhere. Angel.co is up there for anybody who wants to put a few thousand into a internet startup. Do you find that more angel investment is going into games these days? Are any of you privately investing in game studios? You don't have to answer that last question. Yep.
I'll just jump in and give my perspective on this, I guess.
Please.
I see games as being very different than general technology investing.
Completely agree.
General technology investing, you're kind of making a number of small bets, hoping maybe for some big M&A outcomes. The great difference in games right now is they can be phenomenal cash flow businesses. So if you're a small 2-person, 5-person developer and you've got a top 250 game, that can be putting out millions of dollars a year to fund you and your studio and also provide returns for your investors. So I think one great route, and the route that I went previously when I did the angel round, was to find individual investors who understood that it was unlikely that me and my 5-person team was going to sell for $500 million to EA, but much more likely that modest to, call it top 250 game, a modest success would be a great outcome for us and would enable us to pay back our investors, 5-fold or 10-fold.
Right.
So aligning incentives and expectations with investors who might be in games, might be out of games, just letting them know like this, here are the different outcomes, here are the different levels of success, and here's how you can potentially make money, I think is certainly a very viable way to fund a business.
Right. That kind of brings up another topic that I've heard discussed a little bit at both Apps World and here. The topic of premium games. Premium market, let's say it's small in comparison to the free-to-play market. Rarely do you see a top-grossing premium app in the charts. But John, as you were saying, if you're a 5-person, 5-person studio. Premium market is certainly one that you could approach. You self-publish, sell the game, 99 cents, $1.99, $2.99. Bleck, which is some friends of ours from Vienna, did quite well, and they're just 2 brothers in a living room. Had millions of installs, made several $1 million according to a Forbes article that was written about them. How do you see the premium market growing? Do you see free-to-play kind of widening the market, but also funneling people towards premium and making that a more viable opportunity for smaller indie game developers, 1 to 2, 5-people shops? Do you have any opinions on premium market?
We're still talking about that?
Yeah.
No, but so I think by making a game, you're actually communicating with the users, and like there are certain games that you want to make premium, and it's totally up to the developer to do that, and I think you could still be profitable doing that. But as a publisher, it's very hard for us to get interested into a premium game because it's very, as everyone mentioned here, it's very expensive to even publish a game ourselves, and we know that by going premium, we're probably not going to be ROI positive, and and if you put out a premium game, there's always going to be a freemium game that looks very similar to, and they're going to have
within 48 hours.
Yeah, they're probably going to have a bigger user base than you do. I'm not sure if going premium is the right approach unless you're doing it as a hobby or just to self-fund yourself. But I think it's and there are new publishers that are focused more on those premium games, but I think for a lot of the publishers in Asia, it's even more harder because we know that in Asia you have to go free for sure, and that's becoming a bigger chunk of the whole market.
So Jaime, does DeNA work at all with premium, or is that? Well, no, we actually did try premium. We launched a couple of games where we converted like PC Steam games into mobile and launched them as premium. And like like to the expectation, it wasn't really successful. My take really on a premium game is just it it it's just economics, and you know, for big companies like Nexon and GAMEVIL and DeNA, when the expectation of a game now is in the billions of dollars, right? And that's just really market forces coming into play. You can never get anywhere near that with a premium game. So it's just common sense that we're not really going to do anything in the premium. But as developers, I mean, you have to sort of ask yourselves where you're really setting your expectations, right? Are you shooting for top 10 grossing, or are you shooting for, you know, a lucrative top 100, right? And I think it's still possible to get a good game out there and be profitable on premium, just to sort of like, you know, sustain your studio size and not competing up here in the top 10 grossing market. And there are certain, you know, certain genres, if you might say, that just fits the premium model, and you can never probably maybe transform that to free to play, maybe, right? Like maybe you know, board games, probably premium board games, adventure games. Sometimes just really just translate into premium model, and it's hard to make a free to play model out of that. So it really all depends on those dynamics. I don't discount premium so much. I think, you know, there's a niche market for that, and it's just that when you deal with the bigger size of the market and with bigger publishers, then I think free to play is just the only way to go. Yeah.
Okay. We're slowly approaching the wind down Q&A period, but I'll end with the same question for each of you, and would love to have your opinion on that. As a free-to-play mobile game developer, what suggestions, what advice do you have for 5 to 10 person plus developers who might have an interesting game? How would they approach GAMEVIL, for example? What's some suggestions you have there? Should they just call you in the middle of the night, or send a cold email?
Well, yeah, we have a general contact where you can send emails. We'll review all of the titles. We spend a decent amount of time reviewing all of the titles that are sent to us. But I think no, it's you know, like we meet more often, so there's a tendency to work with people who you know with. So I think spending time to get to know the publisher is very important, part of the business. It's a small business. The gaming business is a small community of people. So getting to know the people, I think it's very important. Showing the passion on your game is extremely important. And talking the same language is very important to. I'm not talking about English or German. I'm talking about do you understand free to play? You know, if someone comes up and then they don't even know what free to play is, they haven't even played the games that the publishers have been publishing, then it's really hard to get a healthy dialogue with the publisher. So, I think my number one advice would be to play all of the games. You know, you have to play. Playing all the games in the top grossing charts is extremely important. There's a lot to learn there. We also spend a lot of time learning from the Japanese market and learning from the Chinese market, because these publishers and developers come up with very clever mechanics and monetization tactics. And surprisingly, a lot of people don't play games, you know. So I think playing games is the most important thing. And if you play all of the games in the top grossing chart, I think you'll have a monetization by Bible yourself. So it's much more easier to work with developers who understand all the games that are out in the market.
John, advice for developers approaching Nexon?
Sure, you can email me, john@nexonm.com. We love seeing new games and new ideas. As I said earlier, probably 5 to 10 people is kind of small for us, but we love to meet individuals, 2 people who've got great ideas and are looking to build out their teams, if it's not for this game, for the next game. So we have, you know, we've seen literally a couple hundred pitches in the last year, and love to keep in touch with them even if it doesn't work this time. Best advice is just keep making games. Every game you make, every mistake you make, every day that you're live with a game, you learn something new, and that always helps in the future. So experience and just doing something different is the best advice I can give.
Yeah, from my side, I cue exactly what you just said, and Sean. I mean, partner relationships is also a very hard lesson for game developers to learn. They're sometimes so focused on the games that they're making that they might bump into UQ once a year, rather than having the opportunity to see you as often as possible at conferences. You speak quite a bit, or you know, even keeping up to date via email. How are things going? Here's what we're working on. Here's some of the mistakes we've learned from our first game. I think partner relationships are an extremely important aspect to it as well. Just maintaining the relationship. If it doesn't work the first time, there's always the next game and the next game. Jaime, suggestions, advice for game developers trying to reach DeNA?
It's hard to be the last after these 2. We always welcome games. You can email me too, and I can give you my card after the show. It's always good we are a little bit biased to developers that already have a playable. It's hard to really talk in just concept stage, because you can never really see what the capabilities of the developer are. So a seven-page pitch deck that carefully explains both the core mechanic and the meta game, and how you distinguish both, how you can distinguish both parts of that in your game, in that pitch deck. The pitch deck would also show, for example, like the intended art direction of where you want this game to go and what markets you expect to capture. So those are sort of like the key elements that we look at in that pitch deck. As far as sort of advice is concerned, well, Q mentioned play as much games as you want, and John mentioned to keep making games, so I don't know what else to advise, but so you guys covered it all. But I think what I can, the one thing that always sort of stumps developers when they're sort of pitching us the game is that we do expect developers that at any point of time in the game, right, players are able to feel why they're winning or why they're losing, right? If they can easily say, for example, oh, I'm winning because I've got poor skill, or I'm losing because my character is not at a certain level yet, right? There are just games that that when you play it, it's very confusing the way it's designed, that players don't understand what's making me win or what's making me lose. So I think for me that's a very important design element that sort of solves a lot of problems. So I think yeah, take that in mind, and that's my advice when you keep playing games and keep making games.
Great. So yeah, actually the timer's battery is dead, so it has 10% left. So I'll use this opportunity for questions. If there's anybody with questions, feel free to raise your hands. There's a microphone over here.
Hello. Hello. I have a question in reference to all of you said that free-to-play dominance is obvious, and I have a question. Is it going to always be pay-to-win model? Because that's what I'm afraid of, and I think reading hundreds, thousands of reviews of games which I'm playing and looking, people tend to hate more and more, you know, in-app purchasing and everything which says that it's free to play. I bet that 90% of free to play are pay to win games. And do you think it might change, or are there any other solutions out there? Thank you.
I think from a developer standpoint, you know, certainly pay to win is not something. Don't mistake pay to win or free to play as being automatically meaning pay to win. I think the free to play market has certainly grown quite vast and large, and there will always be a premium market. There will always be a pay to win market as well, especially in markets like China, where pay to win is quite prevalent. I think it's very easy to hear a lot of negative feedback about free to play and automatically assume that it's a bad thing. But I mean, you have tens to hundreds of millions of monthly players who actually enjoy playing free to play games. Naturally, small percentages of those are the ones who are actually paying for them. But I mean, if you look at it this way, I don't necessarily have to go to the movies and buy popcorn, for example, if I don't want to. So you can start to compare the free-to-play market to things like entertainment activities, like going to the movies, you know, collecting books, collecting comic books, things like this. People enjoy spending time, money, and effort on hobbies and things that they love. If that's free-to-play games, I think that's great. I don't know, actually, if you guys have pay-to-win markets and games in certain markets?
We try to, you know, try to avoid sort of a pay-to-win situation. Although I have to, you know, I can be honest that, you know, probably if you analyze it a little bit, you could say some of the games that we do have a pay-to-win model. But you know, the way we position it really is we want users to pay for the content that they love, right? So we keep generating new content every week or every 2 weeks when we run these events, and you know, it's like merchandise inside the game. It's to if the user is really enjoying the game, then he's going to enjoy also new content that's injected into the game. And that new content doesn't necessarily make him more powerful than the rest of the other, you know, the rest of the other players, and that's, you know, that has also something to do on the rigorous amount of balancing that we do in the game, just so that, you know, we know we should always maintain a synergistic relationship between non-paying users and the paying users, right? Both need each other for the game to survive, and we realize that. So we need to we segment, you know, our users such that we continue to make the non-paying users happy in a way, and we continue to reward also the paying users. And you know, that's sort of like the secret sauce, what I'm talking about, of how we do our games. So yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. You know, there are just some games out there that are blatantly quite paid to win, which sort of makes the non-paying user feel a little bit, you know, outcasted. I'm not gonna. It's actually bad because if you generate these negative emotions, the user just drops out. The non-paying user drops out of the game, and we don't want that. We definitely don't want that. We need to keep both the same amount of non-paying users and paying users, right? Yeah, I mean, like Mike said, you shouldn't really associate free-to-play with pay-to-win. I mean, free-to-play can mean a lot of things, and in past conferences, I'm hearing that there's already a lot of sort of, you know, people are already getting tired of other sort of free-to-play mechanics like stamina-based in-app purchases where you cut the game because you've run out of stamina, or like in Candy Crush where you need additional lives and all that, or maybe timer-based models where you got to pay to make things faster. You know, those are all sort of tried and tested in the past, but now I think there's fatigue happening already in the users, and you can argue about that also in a free-to-play model. So I think, you know, free-to-play means a lot of things, and new sort of mechanics, free-to-play design needs to evolve. And when we see markets getting fatigued, for example, of stamina and timer-based unlocks, then yeah, it has to shift somewhere else.
Yeah, I think it's a balancing art, you know, and it's really hard for us to yeah, we're providing value because the customers are paying, and it also works the other way around. But I think yeah, as Jaime mentioned, if we provide value first and get the customers to pay, it's definitely much more rewarding. Another thing is we try not to isolate what hard currency can do and what soft currency can do, and so we'll always leave a way that the non-payers can also enjoy the same way. And during all the live events that we're doing, we're giving out a lot of stuff. You know, we're giving out a lot of hard currency too. So yeah, yes, we don't want to do it to the extent that it really hurts the game. But I think definitely the players who do pay may have some certain advantages, but we try not to make it that obvious. And so yes, yeah, it's an art of balancing. Yeah, is what I feel.
It's still extremely important, I think, to get to give the non-paying customers an enjoyable experience and a game that they can engage with and continue to play for free without having to feel the need like they're being forced to pay. I guess I don't want to say kind of, or as you say, it's a matter of balance within the game balance. I think it's also a matter of balance from game designers as well to provide the value to the non-paying customers, but also provide that additional extra value that doesn't affect the actual outcome or competitiveness of the game, but provides the additional value to someone who wants to purchase items, customization items, et cetera, to basically enhance their enjoyment and experience of the game. John, you want to, or? Good. Thank you. I think there was one more question.
I actually have two questions. One is directly at Q. I hope I pronounced it correctly. And it's whether you are planning to have a production team in Germany as well.
Well, I think it's a very step-by-step approach. We're even doing baby steps in the U.S. We were just a service operation, but then we started producing our own games. So right now we're just doing servicing right now in Germany. But if we feel the needs and if we feel like we have the right talent opportunity, we'll probably move into the next steps. But right now, no, no. Maybe in the future. Yes.
The German office is rather young,
yes,
if I understand.
It's just set up, so hard to say. Yes.
Thanks for the answer. And I've got another, it's for Jaime. I hope I pronounced it correctly. And it's about the collaboration with Nintendo. I heard you are...
Excellent question.
Good. We're all eager to hear that.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether you're allowed to answer it, but it's really just a big mystery for me. And I know Nintendo actually don't like the mobile market, or at least what I have heard of, the statement that the free-to-play model is ruins the market. And now they had to DeNA, and I heard you are going to create software. I'm not really sure whether it's games, and I wonder how it's going, whether there's anything you can share.
What do you want to know? No, well, I mean, I think most of the stuff about the Nintendo deal I can only share what's already out there in the press. So as far as Nintendo changing their minds, I think they still maintain their stance that their IP is best sort of is best executed with their own hardware, right? But I mean, we were able to strike a agreement where we've shown that if you change the formats of the type of games that they have to suit the smartphone, then a lot of people that don't have these consoles can also enjoy Nintendo IP. And this is sort of like the stance that Nintendo has. So they're definitely not going to do direct ports of the games, of their existing games that you see on the Wii or on their consoles. It's just a matter of creating new innovative ideas and new innovative applications that really fit the that fit the devices and at the same time doesn't ruin Nintendo's IP. Yeah, so that's that. I think I hope I answered your question.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, if there are any more questions? No. Going once, going twice. All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. If anybody's interested in talking to them, please feel free to jump up. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.